All right, guys, we are now back. We are ready to go very soon. We already have the lobby set up. Gosu user versus PiLiPiLi in this best of five for $10. And I'm excited about this one, Cybert.
I definitely am too. Now, Gosu user, he has been playing recently, but I'm kind of curious to see from a first-hand perspective actually in the game watching, because back in the day, Gosu user was actually one of the first games versus Tasia. Gosu user versus Tasia was one of the first games that I ever cast of StarCraft 2 because I had been watching it a lot. I'd been casting other games, and then a friend of mine was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to cast some games just for practice. You want to come join me?" And I was like, "Sure." And it was Gosu user versus Tasia. He thought his name was pronounced Gowser, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you look at this and it's really confusing, but then you realize, oh, okay, I get it. It's supposed to be two U's
Mm-hmm.
combined into a W because it's
Mm-hmm.
double U, right? So
Because he's so clever.
but I always like a comeback story. I think it's always great if a
Mm-hmm.
player or anything, any sport really, can come back, make people remember him because people like to forget so easily. People from the past in sports and stuff. So if Ghost User, can make a comeback, make a name for himself again in the scene, I'd be really happy for him.
For sure, and this is going to be one of those opportunities to prove themselves. I believe Gosu User also qualified for the Safety Net Base Trade TV's tournament, so hopefully he's going to be making a name for himself, as I think we're going to be getting into this game in just a few moments.
Yep.
Team Gravity presents Fight Night.
Y'all ready for this?
All right, guys, we're here in game number one. It's going to start on Catalina LE. Is this where game one of Jon Snow and Intense was on? Or was that game
It,
two?
no, it was indeed game number one, if my memory serves me correctly, because they did
Ah,
map elimination, ended up on Catalina, and we've done pretty much the same thing here.
so I don't know, something about this map that always is the last one standing in the veto process. We're going to have the first player right here, guys. He is the blue Protoss on the upper right-hand side. And he is a member of Red Bloods, which is interesting because for a while his clan affiliation was kind of confusing. Like he was on Red Bloods, but kind of wasn't on Red Bloods. Then he went to Envision Esports. That was an ill-fated NA team there. But now he is solidified as a member of that European team, folks. This is going to be the blue Protoss at the very top. It's PiLiPiLi.
And on the left side, that 9 o'clock position, our red Zerg player playing for Root Gaming, it is Gosu User.
So last I saw of PiLiPiLi, he's a player with a curious reputation. He is a streamer. If you guys don't know about him, you should check him out. It's twitch.tv/PiLiPiLi96, I believe. If not, a mod can correct me on that. But nonetheless, he is a player with a curious reputation because a lot of people call him the all-inner. He likes to do a lot of two-base, maybe three-base, sometimes blink all-ins. And that always is a controversial thing sometimes for a player. Uh, but honestly, in my opinion, I think, a win is a win. And I don't subscribe to that thinking that, oh, someone cheeses or someone wins or someone all ins. Like, to me, the idea is you should just be able to defend it and recognize it.
Well, you say that he's a cheeser, that he likes two base play, that he likes blinks all in, but he's Protoss. So that's what that says to me. Hugh, Hugh, Hugh.
I guess that's a point too there. So maybe the frustrations are maybe misdirected. I don't know.
But either way, unfortunately for Gosu User, since it is Catalina, a 3-player map, he's scouting the wrong way with his first Overlord. PiLiPiLi, on the other hand, scouting the correct direction with his Probe Scout.
Yep, and there is always luck involved in that. 50-50 chance here on Catalina.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like PiLiPiLi is going to find that, well, there's an expansion, which is not too crazy or out of the ordinary. And we're going to have follow-up spawning pool, and speed is being researched. So that's, of course, an important thing to look for as Protoss. On the other hand, for PiLiPiLi himself, he actually went for the Nexus first. So a very risky thing to do, honestly, against Zerg, but he pulled it off. He's not going to really be harassed here. And
Yeah.
he's just going to work on that build, getting up the tech he needs.
Yep. Now, speed is just over halfway done for Goswser, so it's not like he delayed that. It's not like he went gasless or anything too crazy. But he didn't, like you said, he didn't go for anything aggro either. And he's just splitting out some lings around the map, potentially looking for any sneaky proxy pylons. Potentially just a result of, as you kind of talked about, PiLiPiLi maybe being known for a bit of cheese, maybe being known for some kind of 1 or 2 base play. And Goswser adds on that third hatchery just before the 520 mark.
Yep, and as that third is going up, we are seeing the tech structure of choice here for PiLiPiLi. It's going to be a robo facility. So oftentimes we do see Immortals make a big impact in early PvZ. And with 2 additional gateways going down here, I'd like to think that PiLiPiLi may possibly do some kind of an Immortal Sentry timing push. Now, what does Goswser see? I'm kind of curious about that. He needs to be sending in that Overlord soon to scout for that tech structure that the TOS would choose at this time in the game, and we are seeing that moving right now.
Yep, and Goswser himself, he's just following it up with more and more drones. Of course, not forgetting his Overlords either, staying ahead on that supply. But yeah, he's just going lots and lots of drones. He's looking to really make this 3-base play work. And some Zergs, they like to do some sort of 3-base sort of play, but they don't actually saturate the third base. It doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be anything quite like that for Goswser, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's trying to take a look at PiLiPiLi's main base. He's seeing a lot there, and that's going to help him determine when he needs to stop droning and start making units. And he's still, you know, a minute or so away from that. He's right now working on a Roach Horn as well as a Lair. So the idea there is that you can start basically the Roach speed as soon as both those buildings finish. He's going to rely heavily on Roaches to defend what would most likely be a Robo, basically Immortal Sentry timing coming out of PiLiPiLi.
Yep. And we do have 5 gateways being added on, bringing our total up to 8. So all sorts of Immortal-based 8-gateway play that Protoss love to do. And it looks like PiLiPiLi, he's moving out of his base. Not too far just yet, but he is adding on a couple of sentries. He's adding on a couple of zealots as well. He definitely doesn't want to lose anything to like a Zergling run-by.
Yeah, speaking of which, there was almost one right there, but PiLiPiLi just in a good enough position to deal with that, because the user does know that this is coming, so by far he knows that he's going to try to start cranking out units now and definitely stop with the drone production.
Yeah, he's adding on 3 spine crawlers as well, a Hydra Den, and +1 missile attacks is just about halfway done. There is a Warp Prism brought along as well for PiLiPiLi, so he's not just relying on those proxy pylons, but he doesn't have a ton of sentries. He's really just got those 2 for now.
Interestingly, PiLiPiLi has elected to go into the natural. Only time will tell if this is a good choice, but he is able to take out 2 of those spine crawlers before they go up, and now the drone pull has been initiated.
Yeah, and with this many zealots being warped in right onto the front lines, PiLiPiLi is not going to stand a chance with just those drones. Now, fortunately for, Goswser, but now with the force field going down on the ramp, PiLiPiLi will take game number 1 in very quick fashion, and Goswser drops that first map.
I will say that I feel that Goswser scouted the Robo just a hair late. I mean, as I was mentioning that he needed to send in that Overlord, I felt like he needed to do it sooner, just because he couldn't quite find it, and once he did, that kind of led to little lost time for him to try to repair. Also, one other reason why this was so troublesome for him to deal with, and it's not to take anything away from him necessarily, because the Immortal Sentry timing is extremely powerful. It's definitely the bread and butter of PvZ theory, but is getting those lings out to basically snipe those proxy pylons as soon as possible. If you kind of let those get up, it's going to make your life a lot tougher. Even if there is a Warp Prism, it's just better to basically get that map control earlier on.
Yeah, and considering that Gosu user ended up adding on that third base, added on a lot of drones before really scouting anything. Like you said, he just didn't have the units to really be able to deal with that, let alone shut down the proxy pylons, as you were talking about. But that's only game number one. And Gosu user, maybe he kind of forgot who he was playing against. Perhaps there's some way that he doesn't have a lot of experience against PiLiPiLi, but now he's going to kind of have a feel out for his style, a feel out for how PiLiPiLi likes to play games. And Gosu user will hopefully be learning from that a little bit, and hopefully we'll see maybe even adaptation into game number two, as he does get to choose the map, and it is merry-go-round.
Yeah, and that's the difference too between playing just one game on ladder against somebody, as opposed to playing a series of games. Like you play a best of seven, right? You're gonna have time to get a feel for your opponent. Obviously, you don't want to take too much time because you're digging yourself too
Mm-hmm.
much of a hole. But for one game, maybe even game two, you can sort of kind of get a feel for your opponent's strategy and change things. In fact, this is in reference to last week, or not last week, sorry, but 2 weeks ago when we had Destiny play Nathanius.
Mm.
Nathanius was struggling a bit against Destiny's two-base muta play, but Destiny stuck with that strategy for every game, and you could see Nathanius adjust his style from one game to the next until pretty much by game four, he was already hard countering it. So that's kind of what you can do when you play a series. We'll see if that can happen here for Ghost User.
Yep. And Gosu user, like we talked about, he was quite the up-and-comer just a couple of years ago, but now he's back, so it's not like he's totally new to the scene. It's not like these are brand new concepts to him. We do kind of expect him to pull that sort of adaptation or to mix things up. Potentially, he's going to be adding in a bit of cheese on his own. He's going to be adding in a bit of that kind of taste of your own medicine, and he's going to be seeing how PiLiPiLi likes it. But with his map choice going to merry-go-round, we'll have to see exactly what he has planned. As I know lots of people like to talk about how hard it is to take a third for Protoss on this map. Well, anyone, but especially Protoss, which leads to a lot of infamous two-base sort of play like you were talking about at the beginning of this series.
All right, so we're going to get right into this one. Of course, Ghost User is the one who was able to choose this map. He chose Merry-Go-Round LE. So let's see why he chose this map. Curious to sort of ponder here. Third may be a little tough for Protoss to be able to defend if the Protoss chooses to make a third. But other than that, we'll just find out.
Yeah. I mean, really, no one is inside of these guys' heads, so it's all speculation as it normally is. But we're now loaded into the map.
All right, so the first player we are going to be taking a look at here is going to be the guy who won the previous game. It was a very powerful Immortal Sentry timing. It hit extremely early and left his opponent completely without an answer and without even a GG, I might want to add. So maybe already getting under the skin of his opponent. We'll see. It's going to be the Blue Protoss on the very bottom of Merry-Go-Round LE, guys. He is the player for Red Bloods. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have PiLiPiLi.
And on the left side, the 10 o'clock position, once again scouting the wrong way with the Overlord, unfortunately. It is the Red Zerg player from Root Gaming, Gosu User.
Oh, the worst is when you are on a 4-player map and you scout the wrong way. That is just, it's so infuriating.
Yep. You're like, well, I guess my 12-minute Overlord scout timing is going to come into effect this game because that Overlord is not getting anywhere near his base. And you're like, maybe my second or third Overlord can get there quickly enough. And then you get hit by some, like, 2-base all-in, and you're like, oh, well, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, as far as things go for Zerg, a lot of times you can end up doing a process of elimination, which is great, but then you don't actually see your opponent until way later, even if you do know where he is. But right now, we're going to have PiLiPiLi send out a scout in the right direction, I might want to point out, if it wasn't pointed out already. Ghost User electing to take the spawning pool first. And it's actually almost finished, interestingly enough.
Yep, PiLiPiLi, on the other hand, going to be getting inside of the main base. He's going to be having a look around, and he's going to see that spawning pool. He's going to be like, all right, we got no gas, but we do have the spawning pool, and I did see that hatchery going down at the natural. So he's going to have a pretty good read on exactly what his opponent is doing. And like we talked about, unfortunately, Goswser just doesn't quite have that information. But the Cybernetics Core is on the way. That first Zealot is popping on out as well. So thus far, things are looking similar for PiLiPiLi to the last game.
Yeah, well, PiLiPiLi last game went for the Nexus first, and if he had done that this game...
Mistake.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. If PiLiPiLi had done Nexus first this game, that'd be a real bad thing. In fact, maybe that's why Goswser went for the really early spawning pool, because he thought, okay, you're going to try that Nexus first nonsense again? Let me punish that, except... Well, PiLiPiLi didn't do that this time. So we're going to have a bunch of Lings heading over here. They're going to try to target down this Zealot. And the Zealot is running. But when it's running, it's not attacking, and it's taking hits. He's just trying to find a nice little choke point to kill as many Lings as possible, but he'll only just get one. And Goswser, with the great micro on the Lings there, now is going to try to target down this Nexus.
Yep, with the Mothership Core heading over, the Nexus is going to get quite low. It is actually going to get canceled, and the probe gets taken out as well. A nice victory there for Goswser, considerably delaying the expansion of his opponent. And I mean, fortunately for PiLiPiLi, he got the cancel, but that is the best of a bad situation. Losing the Zealot, losing the Nexus as well.
And now we're going to have these Lings just run around the main base to be extremely annoying, but also getting a scout too. And now they're going to probably try to target down the Nexus a little bit again. Nope, not quite. Mothership Core is always looming. Yeah, and I think that's enough for Goswser to back off.
Yeah, unfortunately, he just had those couple of Lings left, but he did only make 6 Lings in the beginning of the game. So he didn't, like, flood Lings, nothing too crazy. He's been powering drones pretty much ever since, and he's just been building up that eco on his current 2 bases. We'll have to see when he decides to add on that third hatchery. But the Nexus just now going to be passing that halfway mark, and the Lings will kind of skirt right in past the gateways.
You know, interestingly, Goswser has elected to build a Roach Warren before his third. And that almost suggests to me that he wants to do a 2-base Roach timing really early. And when I say really early, it has to be earlier than any sort of toss 2-base timing. Luckily for Goswser, he has delayed PiLiPiLi quite a bit, particularly on this natural Nexus, which may be enough to have encouraged Goswser to do this, but it has to work, because if this attack is defended by the toss, you're going to be behind because you don't have your third, or you will have gotten it very late. And now we can see Goswser going ahead to grab a lair as well. So I don't think he has any plans for a third until now, maybe if even. So we're going to see an all-in here likely from Goswser.
And very fortunate for PiLiPiLi, well, not even fortunate, but very good by PiLiPiLi, is he did scout. He went to the one third base location and then the other potential third base location. He confirmed there was no base by Goswser, and now he's going to see a bit of those roaches. He's going to cancel his proxy pylon, and he's going to go ahead and head back home. But he has a pretty good idea of what is heading his way.
Yeah, and, you know, PiLiPiLi roaming around with those Zealots is also just serving as a way to just deny a third if Goswser were to go for one, but that isn't the case at all, as we're seeing roaches now coming out and moving across the way here. Now, I did notice that PiLiPiLi had a robo finish up, a robotics facility that is, but he has yet to get an immortal from it, which is always very, very important in dealing with roaches. He's gonna have to throw down a couple of cannons here to hold this attack, but I just don't see them coming quite in time.
Yeah, that immortal is not quite near enough. Now, he does drop down 3 force fields. He's going to be buying himself quite a bit of time. And this Mothership Core is indeed heading on back. There goes the photon overcharge that everyone loves to see. And it looks like these roaches, they're going to have to break down these pylons to get in, but they're going to be taking constant damage.
Yeah, and there is one immortal out now for PiLiPiLi. That's going to be enough to tell Goswser to back off. And he is now going to add on a third hatchery. But PiLiPiLi, with the initial 4 Zealots, is back to deny this.
Yeah.
And if he can get the cancellation, that is going to be huge.
Yep, the roaches are moving in to defend, going to be targeting down the Zealots one at a time. The The hatchery is getting dangerously low on HP with only 70, 60 HP. It's nearly being taken out.
My
There
gosh.
it goes.
It was
Not
killed.
canceled.
It was
Yeah.
killed.
Oh.
That is
Ooh.
rough.
That was, yeah, you could just see the war going on. If he probably had it selected and almost canceled it a half dozen times and then kept thinking, no, I can get it. But we do have Burrow on the way. We do have Hydras on the way, Hydra speed as well. And that infestation pit coming on out for Gosu user.
But in all honesty, with this kind of economy from Ghost User, he can't support all the tech he needs. He contemplated going for an attack right now, but you know that PiLiPiLi's going to have more immortals than he had there before, and that was going to be an extremely tough place to try to break into, the natural, that is. Also, one thing Ghost User has been doing is checking on to see if PiLiPiLi himself has gotten a third. He has not. So Ghost User knew that he was in no position to counter just yet. In fact, he may have to end up playing defensively here at the 11-minute mark.
Yep, the third is going to be under fire. The potential third for Gosu user, that is going to be under fire. Now, Warp Prism did just get added on by PiLiPiLi. We'll have to see if he just uses that for reinforcements or if he's going for any shenanigans. The Zealot's starting to move in, force field sectioning off this army, and there's one Immortal kind of caught away from the rest of the army, but it's not going to get focused down just yet. It's dealing a pretty good amount of damage to those Roaches, and the Time Warp does get dropped down. The Hydralisk is doing what they can, and there's still a fair amount of Protoss here, as Zergling Speed still is not even finished up.
Yeah, normally in this scenario, I would say, okay, well, the Zerg player should have defender's advantage, but that usually relies on a better economy than two bases, guys. And now PiLiPiLi is going to march forward with these units. He's going to be able to warp in more at that Warp Prism. This is an extremely tough hold for Ghost User. He's pulling his drones right now. This is the last-ditch resort for him. Even if he can pull off the hold, he's going to lose so much.
Yep, the drones getting targeted down, more Zealots being warped in. Now, of course, that Warp Prism is loading up a couple of Zealots. This first Swarm Host has popped out, and again, with only that kind of two-base sort of production, there's not even a macro hatch out there for Gosu user. Zealot's about to be dropped into the main base. We'll have to see. He is moving in to hit the natural at the same time, so Gosu user is going to have a lot of trouble trying to deal with these multiple attacks. He's probably going to be losing quite a few more drones.
Yeah, I don't see Ghost User holding on for too much longer here as he stopped mining completely. There's nothing he can do to replace the units that are dying right now, down to these squishy little Hydras. He had the thought, okay, I'm going to go Swarm Host here because I'm behind. I'm just going to sit back and turtle. But on two bases, you're not really turtling. It's just not enough.
Yeah. And unfortunately for Gosu user, he may be dropping down yet another map in this series. Now, he did clean up that initial attack. There's still Zealots in the main base, but like you talked about, he has not been mining. He's hardly had any economy to speak of for this entire game. And when your little economy is not even mining, it's just such a bad situation. And I mean, he's staying in this game. He's starting to bring out the Lings, so he's hoping he can do something here. I think it's just going to be one sort of last-ditch effort, but PiLiPiLi just has to defend the littlest bit.
You know, this is a hive we're looking at, by the way. This is a hive.
I didn't even really realize that, but yeah.
Because I'm looking at the production tab. There's a Viper. I'm thinking, something's weird about this. So there's a Viper out. It's gonna consume the extractor. I think it's just gonna be one big drone pull, and then maybe it's gonna be the blinding cloud of Ghost of User's dreams to neutralize the whole army of PiLiPiLi. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's gonna attempt to do here, but he still has to hold off these Zealots first.
Yep, the Zealots getting dropped in. Now, there are Roaches and Hydras to deal with these, but they did snipe the Infestation Pit. Again, not that Gosu user can actually make a lot of use for that, considering he's only got one base economy. But Gosu user, he's moving out once again. And his Viper, I mean, it's still sitting around in the main base. He's consuming a little bit more. He just needs a touch more energy. But we'll see if he's able to pull off an absolute miracle here, because that's what it would take.
So we have the one Swarm Host contain going down here on the natural.
I love that build.
Ghost user is pushing it forward to continue to contain PiLiPiLi here. And he's going to bring down now his whole army. I honestly think he should have brought the drones with him as well, because if this attack ends, It's not like the half base economy is going to really get him many reinforcements. So might as well pull the drones down here too to serve as a meat shield. Let's see if the Robo PiLiPiLi can hold on here. But he's got 2 Colossi. Yep. I think it's looking pretty decent here for the toss.
Yeah, the Colossus haven't really been doing all that much in this game. They almost get targeted down. It does walk away. The second one does get abducted. It will get targeted down. The second Colossus gets eliminated as well. Now, there are still a couple of Hydras here, but there's Photon Overcharge, there's Immortals, Stalkers, and, of course, 2 base economy with production. PiLiPiLi takes the second map in this best of 5.
Wow, so 2 really strong games from PiLiPiLi here. I think Goswser was kind of caught in a weird spot here. He wanted to make that 2 base all in. It did not quite work out for him. Just didn't do any economic damage whatsoever. He probably thought he had it because the initial Ling had delayed that Nexus for so long. And he probably thought, okay, well, I'm going to be on 2 bases, but I'm going to have a step. I'm going to be a step forward of PiLiPiLi here. So I'm going to make the most of it. But just couldn't quite squeeze out the all-in. And, well, without a third base, that third base having been denied as well, I think pretty much it was inevitable.
Yeah, that third base getting sniped twice could not feel good for Goswser, like you were talking about.
Yep.
But we kind of talked about before this game, maybe Goswser will adapt to PiLiPiLi's style. We did kind of see that, and it just got shut down so well. So incredibly well by PiLiPiLi. He, of course, scouted the fact that there was no 3 base by Goswser, so he knew that he was going to have to deal with a lot of pressure. And then, like you mentioned, he hid those 4 Zealots out on the map and then used those to shut down that third base. And really good execution by PiLiPiLi, really good read overall by him. And Goswser, he mixed it up. He's trying to do other stuff, and the execution could have been better, but he just got shut down so hard by PiLiPiLi.
Yeah, so now we're heading into what is match point already in Game 3. And this is always a tricky spot because as the player who is facing elimination, you're going to want to play really safe, right? You don't want to cheese. You don't want to do any of these things that can lead to you basically dying. But on the other hand, when you're the player who's in a position to close things out, you know this too. You're going to think, okay, I don't think he's going to do anything crazy. And then that suddenly limits the options for what your opponent can do. And that is the greatest thing when you have that in StarCraft. When you're the winner. So
yeah, when you're the guy with all the options on the table, when you're the guy looking at it and you're like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. Of course I'm going to do whatever I want.
That's right. So we are now heading into Game 3. It's going to be all up to this player now. It's his series to lose. The blue Protoss on the bottom left-hand side of Deadwing, guys. The representative for Red Bloods. And he wants to close this out. You know it. So you can get back to laddering. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have PiLiPiLi.
And in the top right corner, that red Zerg player who is representing Root Gaming, who is down 0-2 in this best of 5. Can he come back the reverse all kill to take that $10? It is Goswser.
Alrighty, so this is Deadwing now. It's a pretty fat map. Okay, just not because of the possible spawning locations, which of course is going to be vertical or cross spawns. There are no horizontal spawns on this map. But the thing is, it's a really large map, lots of ground to cover. Also, it's a great map to macro on. We got basically 4 bases all clustered together with really only 1 choke point. There's the really narrow one in the back with the rocks, but that's not a place where people like to fight because, well, a lot of times the defender's advantage there is very strong. So really on a map like this, Goswser may have an opportunity here to finally engage in a longer macro game. It'll be easier for him to hold his bases. We'll see if that's the case because PiLiPiLi can come up with something pretty, how should I say, innovative in trying to work his way through it. But I do have to say, out of all the 3 matches, this one, I would give Goswser the biggest chance.
Yep. We saw in game number 1, he wanted to play that macro, and like you were just talking about, this is the map to do it. Now, of course, since he is down that 0-2, he got to choose both of the maps, and I think he definitely chose this one just for the exact reasons that you were talking about, that cluster of 4 bases, that macro possibility, and it is going to be Hatch first and Nexus first for both of these guys, so they both have that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that previous match, Jon Snow and Intense, like I said, that kind of deal, like they're gonna be playing greedy, and then they didn't. They did the exact opposite. It looks like both these guys are getting with the Droopy program here. They have gone for Expos first.
I am all about that Droopy program. When we see after those first 2 games, I'm all about a macro game. So if it requires these guys to get on the Droopy program to macro, then I am all about that.
All right, so it looks like Goswser's added on his pull. He is getting gas already, so the pull is done, of course. So he is getting speed. He's getting speed right now. That's why we know the pull is done. PiLiPiLi, on the other hand, just working on the tech. We got the gateway, cybernetics were coming afterwards. So really just standard stuff so far coming out of these guys. Again, the trick for Goswser is to recognize immediately, as soon as he can, what's going on as far as the tech PiLiPiLi is going for. But also to remember that PiLiPiLi's gone Nexus first. He should be able to recognize this, and then given that that's the case, he needs to take his third earlier. But actually, it looks like he's going for a speedling all-in timing right now. We have some lings heading down to PiLiPiLi's base.
Yep, and Goswser, I mean, we talked a little bit about what players like to do as they're down 0-2 in something like a best of 5, and apparently Goswser likes to add on 14 more lings when he's already got about a dozen or so streaming across the map. Now, speed is almost going to finish up, so he adds on even more lings on production, but there is a Stargate on the way and a Forge, now a second Forge, so I don't know that PiLiPiLi was really expecting this.
Well, PiLiPiLi is going to get up that wall just in time, though. These lings right now trying to target down the walls here. PiLiPiLi putting up more structures in the back to reinforce it. And just as I said, people were getting with the Droopy program. Goswser decides that that is not the case for him. He's going to target down that Forge, going to bring down the first one that's completed. His lings, though, are going to be able to break through now.
Yeah, finally they were able to break through the wall. The probe desperately trying to reestablish the wall. He barely manages to get it up, but there's already 20 or so lings in the main base. The probes have to be pulled, and the lings can now go to town. That's a single pylon powering all of those tech structures that Goswser could go ahead and take down. Lots of probes going down, but Photon Overcharge has been activated. And oh man, if he would have sniped that pylon, it would have been a very different story, but it may not matter as more and more lings flood into the natural.
Yep, and we are going to see that cannon targeted down. Not enough energy for a second Photon Overcharge, possibly not enough before the Nexus falls, but wait, there is an Oracle here from PiLiPiLi, but as Goswser is running away from it, the Oracle is wasting that energy, which can kill those lings so easily. Now Goswser is targeting down the main Nexus, but the Photon Overcharge is doing a lot to limit the ling numbers here.
Now, Goswser just flooded 20 more lings on the production tab. He's got 8 more rallied across the map. As the GG comes out, Goswser finally takes a map back with a speed ling all in.
So, hey, like everything I was saying, this is your match point. You're on the wrong side of the record. This is on Deadwing LE. You're supposed to be playing safe. And Goswser goes with the Speedling all in, almost in a no regret style here. And it worked out for him. So I guess he is going to, feel a little better here now that he has gotten himself onto the board here and maybe turn things around. Yeah.
And I wonder, although I don't know, so this is pure speculation, but I wonder if part of Goswser's plan was like, I'm going to choose a macro map. PiLiPiLi knows that I'm down 0-2, that I'm in that dangerous situation, that the kind of common wisdom is to play safe, and then I'm going to go for a 2-base speedling all in. And so he's just maybe kind of metagaming PiLiPiLi a little bit there. And PiLiPiLi played directly into his hand, as you talked about. Goswser got in with just I would think it was an Overlord or a couple of lings right at the start. And he was like, okay, you went Nexus first. You've got pretty limited production. You're really focusing on that eco. And that, of course, cemented his decision. But the map choice does go to PiLiPiLi. It's still match point, so PiLiPiLi, he's still up 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, the thing too is that in the first game, PiLiPiLi did the Nexus first on Catalina, and he was not punished for it. And that enabled him to really get out that really strong and early Immortal Century timing that Goswser was not in a position to deal with. Also because he himself took a pretty late third. So that made it even tougher for him. This time around, he had his foot on the gas pedal. He was going to be the one to set the tone, and he benefited from it.
Yeah, and we'll see who is taking over control of this theoretical car and who's got their foot on the gas in this next game. But it is going to, again, go to PiLiPiLi's map choice, and it looks like King Sejong Station, a map that we have all come to know and love in sort of standard tournament play over the last couple of seasons.
All right. So, guys, just want to remind you again, if you're just joining us now and you missed some of the games earlier on between Johnstone and Dents, fantastic games, by the way. You guys definitely will be able to check them out on this very channel right here. Click that videos tab. All the VODs will be saved onto Team Gravity's Hitbox channel, as well as the VODs from the previous fight nights. So we've had a lot of great players play here. Fantasy and Gumiho were the headliners for the previous week. And it's just, basically top flight players after another. So definitely check those out. And don't forget to follow here at the Team Gravity channel as well, because we are hosting fight nights every week. And you will be able essentially to see all of them if you follow and are reminded of them.
Yep. And Team Gravity Fight Night is just one of those events that it's like, it's going to happen every week. There's going to be some awesome, awesome matches. And even if maybe you don't like one of the matchups, well, there's 2 other matchups for you to watch, and they're all best of 5 or longer. But let's continue with this series on King Sejong Station.
All right, so we are at match point once again, but, well, this Red Zerg player was able to stand tall in the previous game, getting himself a quick win, perhaps mentally stabling himself. So, calm down a little bit. I'm back into this one, and we can see about trying to get the momentum back entirely with the tie. So this is going to be the Red Zerg representing Root Gaming. He's looking to make a comeback, not just in this series, but as well just for his career entirely. And this is going to be the time for him to do just that. It's the Red Zerg. It's Goswser.
And in the southeast position, the blue Protoss, who has been commanding the majority of this series, but can he regain control in this game number 4? Fighting for Red Bloods, it is PiLiPiLi.
Now, on a 2-player map like Sejong Station, PiLiPiLi is not going to go Nexus first. And you know what? He did it on a 4-player map, and it didn't work out for him, so you definitely don't want to do it here. So he's going to go ahead with the Gateway first, as is typical. The Probe almost went to build the Assimilator, but he's changed his mind. Maybe he wants to make a Gateway expansion? I don't know.
Yeah,
or maybe he just wants... Oh, it's a forward pylon. Okay. But no, and the gas as well. All right.
He just adds that on a couple of seconds later just to make you look bad, Droopy. It was all part of the master plan.
I guess so. Because Goswser was the one trying to make me look bad last game, so.
Yeah, but in this game, he may be going and subscribing to the Droopy, whatever you called it in the last game, but it makes you play macro. He's adding on a 3rd base, and that is, of course, before the pool. So, this could be very bad versus a player like PiLiPiLi.
I would say that this is actually very counter to the Droopy program, because this is Sejong Station, a 2-player map, and you're going 3 hatch before pool. Yep. To me, that's crazy. That is crazy. But you know what? It takes crazy to beat crazy. So I guess I understand it.
Yep. And hey, you know what? If there's not anything too crazy coming out from PiLiPiLi, then maybe this move by Gosu user seems crazy, but is actually brilliant.
That's confusing, but it makes sense.
As long as it makes sense in the end. But PiLiPiLi is now going to be confirming that third base. He saw how incredibly late the pool was, and that had to have made him suspicious. He scouted the rest of the main base. He didn't see anything like that, and so he was like, all right, yep, you have got yourself a third hatchery on the way. And that is, of course, going to be driving the rest of his game plan, I would guess.
So we are seeing something interesting here. PiLiPiLi is chronoing that warp gate. Now, generally speaking, if a toss was trying to add on some tech like Stargate or, Robo, they'd be chronoing probes at this point just because they want to get their economy up a little bit better so they can support the more expensive units. And whatever timing they hit is not necessarily going to require the fastest kind of warp gate. But we see PiLiPiLi here really focusing on that cyber core, and there is no Robo facility or Stargate just yet. So he may be looking to make a gateway-based timing push extremely early, and given that he scouted the 3 hatcheries before a pool, this could be something that will really bother Goswser user.
Yep. PiLiPiLi is also just hiding that probe out on the map, which, with any sort of gateway timing, like you were talking about, no Robo, no Stargate, which, of course, with no Robo, that means there's no warp prism potential for those warp-in reinforcements, which means proxy pylons are going to be PiLiPiLi's friend. Now, we may be getting ahead of ourselves, but with those 4 gateways being completed relatively soon, 4 additional gateways, I should say, not 4 total, 4 additional gateways bringing the count up to 7, it looks like you are going to be right, Droopy.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a pretty monstrous gateway all in, guys. We are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's that 7 gateway opener. Only 1 gas, too, I might add, not even being saturated. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Zealots and definitely a lot of units for Goswser user to deal with. He's starting to pump out some roaches right now. The curious thing I'm wondering is, has Goswser user scouted any of this? Not quite. Not quite indeed. He's sending in his Overlord, not even completely this time around. Just seeing enough of that natural. Goswser user, he's going to have to rely on game sense here to hold this off. Seeing these units already roaming out, he may already kind of have an idea.
Yep, he may very well know exactly what is heading his way. He's going to see that many Stalkers, that many Zealots, and the Mothership Core this far out. And he is going to target down the closest proxy pylon. But PiLiPiLi loves his proxy pylon, so he's still got quite a few. Zealots coming in here, able to get on top of the roaches and deal a fair amount of damage, while the Stalkers do shoot from behind, but there are still a healthy number of roaches. Is it going to be enough with the next couple of warp-ins? We'll have to see.
It's important for Goswser user not to overextend with these roaches right now. He's fighting off creep. His reinforcements are going to come a little slower off creep than they would on it. And PiLiPiLi, on the other hand, has a proxy pylon. But as Goswser user can rally up some additional reinforcements to push forward, he's going to feel a little more confident here. But some more Zealots have been warped in. This battle still has yet to end.
Yep, Goswser user rallying in more and more roaches. Of course, there's no drones on the production tab. It's just roaches and lings. As he's trying to fight back this Protoss, he's taking a lot of losses. I don't know if engaging this far forward was necessarily a good idea. He steps forward, snipes down one last Stalker before turning around, turning tail, and running back to his third base.
Now, PiLiPiLi here, his objective here absolutely is to take out that third base. If he just does even trades with Goswser user and his attack is shut down after that, it's not a good situation because he's only going to be on 2 bases compared to Goswser user's 3, which means that the workers will come a lot slower until he gets at their nexus. But Goswser user still has to hold this off before that happens. And right now, with additional lings arriving, that may be what he needs.
Yeah, the production is just not able to keep up with Goswser user. PiLiPiLi is starting to fall behind in those numbers. He does still have Zealots being warped in, but he's starting to boost out those probes. It doesn't matter. Goswser user takes the game. And how about that? 2 games in a row, he doesn't subscribe to the Droopy program. And 2 games in a row, he wins to bring us to the ace match, which we always love.
Absolutely. This is the comeback guy right now, you know? He wants a comeback for his career. Why not have a comeback in this series too? And it's looking pretty good for him. That's what I'm talking about as far as momentum goes. You win 2 in a row, and suddenly PiLiPiLi's the one who's looking for answers now. This is going to be a crazy game 5, folks.
Yep, there's of course these guys. These guys have showed their hands as to what they want to do in this series. And Goswser in particular showed that he's willing to, kind of go for the 3 hatch before pool sort of nonsense. He's also willing on a big macro map to go for a 2 base speedling all in. So we've seen kind of the range. And of course with PiLiPiLi in game number 1, that 2 base, like immortal, mostly sentries, but then just a ton of zealots warping all in. He did indeed make that work. So these guys, they've run the gamut as far as what they've tried to do. And they've both taken some games off each other. Hopefully, game number 5 will be kind of a little bit more macro-oriented and a little bit more explosive.
Yeah, folks, and you know what? Put in your bets right now. We got a poll going on. Who wins the ace match, Goswser or PiLiPiLi? This is a tough decision right now because, well, you've seen 2 wins on each side, and they have all been very decisive wins, I have to say. Never one that was really on your edge sort of a situation. One player managed to essentially have the upper hand early on, and just that set the tone for the rest of the game. So it's hard to say. It really comes down to those first few minutes, what each player manages to do.
Yep, and this game on Overgrowth, it's going to be one of those maps that is just a classic for these guys.
Oh, yes. Yes, and there is just no better way than to close out an ace match series with Overgrowth LE. So let's see who's playing on it and where. This is going to be the Red Zerg on the bottom left-hand side representing Root Gaming. He has fought back from a 0-2 hole, and maybe this is, I guess, a metaphor for how his career is going to continue on from this point. We'll see. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have here on the lower left, Goswser.
And in the top right side, the blue Protoss player. Can he close it out after losing 2 games in a row, fighting for Red Bloods? It is PiLiPiLi.
All right, so I'm going to make a prediction, and we're going to know exactly what it is. Not because of the prediction I made, but because my prediction is going to be wrong.
Great.
This is Overgrowth, like Sejong Station, 2-player map. Everybody knows where everybody is, right? So you would think, okay, let's play a little safer, aka set myself up for some follow-up aggression, right? You can expand maybe a little later, at least as far as PiLiPiLi goes. For Zerg to take a 15 hatch, which is what Goswser looks like he's doing right now, that's kind of the all-purpose opener for many things, unless you know cheese is coming. But otherwise, I don't expect these players to go too crazy. At least definitely not PiLiPiLi. Goswser may take a normal timing third. We'll see.
Well, Droopy, you know your 2 base sort of maps. We'll have to see exactly what this drone is doing. But right now, it looks like that drone. It looks like that drone wants to take a 3rd hatch before the pool for Goswser.
I think so too. And when PiLiPiLi saw this last game, he's like, I gotta all in this dude. Like, I'm gonna do the earliest gateway timing. I'm gonna crush this 3 hatch before pull nonsense. It blew up in his face. So PiLiPiLi, when he finds out about this, I am very curious to see what he's gonna do.
Yeah. Now, fortunately for this series, we've seen the sort of comeback of Goswser, and these 2 guys, like we talked about earlier, completely evenly matched in so many ways, because at first it looked like it was going to kind of be a stomp from PiLiPiLi, but Goswser has definitely been making it happen. And it seems that when Goswser does not subscribe to the Droopy program, things work out great.
Yes, that's why...
But we'll see.
That's why he's better than me, right? So I think that's an understatement, too. But
that's why I don't name any of my programs the Cybert program, because it's just always wrong.
Well, the pool is now finished. I'm not seeing any gas here yet from Cyber, so he's actually maybe just gonna crank out some queens here for a little bit, trying to utilize more mineral mining than anything. And then, of course, I'd expect some lings, for a little bit of map control, because he does need to find out what PiLiPiLi's doing. We have seen, all-ins from the guy. We have seen a Nexus First from the guy. He's been a little more versatile than people give him credit for, I'd have to say. PiLiPiLi, that is.
Yeah, maybe in other sort of tournament play, maybe in other competitive matches, he does do that all in. But today, in this series from Team Gravity, the Fight Night preliminary match, we are not seeing that only all in sort of style. So, like you say, people maybe don't give him enough credit for mixing things up. But Gosu User still has not gotten very good vision on what his opponent is doing just yet. He's going to kind of poke in with that Overlord, trying to get an idea.
Yeah, he's gonna have to back out of that with that Overlord now. And well, it does look like PiLiPiLi's doing the same thing. We see him chronoing that Cybernetics core, and Ghost User not being able to confirm this again may probably just decide to blind create a bunch of units. And from his perspective, even if PiLiPiLi changed things up, decided not to come with a gateway all in on 2 bases, a 7-gate all in, then hey, all these roaches and stuff I just used, I'm gonna counterattack you with them. So maybe from that perspective, Ghost User is fine with not being able to see exactly what PiLiPiLi's doing, but we are seeing gateways already being transformed.
Yep, he's going to go for that 7-gate just like you talked about, and very, very similar to the last game. Actually, this game is shaping up in many ways to be very similar to the last match. We'll see if the conclusion is as similar with Gosu User taking the win, but Gosu User, well, I thought he spotted that probe setting up the proxy pylon. Maybe he didn't, but that is awfully close, so there's going to be extreme reinforcements here for PiLiPiLi.
Yep, 12 roaches are about to pop, but they are not... Oh, actually, the bulk of them did pop here. They certainly can and should fight. Ghost User using the Queen as well to help in the battle, but needs to wait for additional roach reinforcements to arrive. PiLiPiLi now is going to move forward with his army. I don't think this is enough just yet.
Nope, but the roaches are getting time warped as the Mothership Core moves forward to do that extra bit of damage. The Zealots are on the front line, going to be tanking a lot of the shots for the roaches, but there's only 5 Stalkers here, as the roaches are kind of stutter-stepping backwards, trying to just eliminate those Zealots so they can finally work against the Stalkers, but the roach numbers are dwindling, and PiLiPiLi is making some good headway. He is going to have to deal with the constant reinforcements, though, from Gosu User.
And the longer it takes for PiLiPiLi to break the 3rd base, the better a spot Ghost User is going to be in because of the fact that he's just going to be on 3 bases for longer than PiLiPiLi can be. So now PiLiPiLi is facing a tough scenario. He needs to win this battle, or else it's going to be a very tough uphill one for the rest of the game.
Yep, and for now, he's not winning as decisively as he would like. He is pushing the roaches back, but there's more roach reinforcements streaming in, and the Zealot numbers are so low that it's going to be just Zealot, or it's going to be just Stalker versus Roach, which in this case would probably work out a little bit better for Gosu User. But more Zealots being warped in, and PiLiPiLi, oh, he's forced away the mining, but can he actually break the 3rd? It's looking a little dicey for PiLiPiLi.
Yes, and I'll have to say, if you look at the units lost tab, PiLiPiLi has lost more resources in these battles, which means he's not being as cost-effective, which means that Ghost User is going to eventually wear down the Protoss. And with that, if PiLiPiLi can't break this now, it's going to be never, honestly.
Yeah, it could just end up being a repeat of the last game. Gosu User stepping forward, sniping down Stalker, and he is trying to snipe down. She's trying to snipe down a 2nd Stalker as well. We saw him do this on King Sejong Station, of focusing down the weakened Stalkers, picking off what he can when he can, and engaging at smart angles. Now, even on King Sejong Station, he ended up stepping off of creep, and he's doing that just now, as he was fighting on creep with those speedy reinforcements. It's just Stalkers, though, and there's even a couple of Lings left over for Gosu User as he powers more Lings, more Roaches, and even an additional Queen.
Now, in a similar situation as this last game, PiLiPiLi recognized it was time to leave, but given that this is the ace match, he may very well stay because, well, there's no other game to fall back on. But this is pretty much a horrible situation for Protoss because right now, the not only is the Zerg obviously up by twice the supply, if the Zerg decided to fall back in transition, he will get to where he wants to be way faster because of the 3 base with injects. You, on the other hand, as Toss, have to either defend this massive attack, and after this, still find a way to be able to macro and take and secure a 3rd base. It is so difficult. I almost want to see a DT Shrine from PiLiPiLi.
Well, he certainly is behind, and he's just falling further and further behind as the roaches are coming in. And I don't even know if this Robo is going to get an opportunity to be used with all of the pressure that's being laid on the front. No, it will not. Goswser takes the games back with the reverse all kill. The 3-2 victory for Goswser. Those bragging rights are his. That $10 is his. And he takes this Team Gravity Fight Night preliminary match.
And, I can tell that, after those initial 2 games, Goswser was a little bit on tilt, a little frustrated with the, just how they went down. But you know what? Credit to the guy. He was able to just really, calm himself down and then really methodically play it well. The metagame on Deadwing was really helpful for him. And you know what? That just set the tone for the rest of the series. And 3-2 victory. Epic comeback there, and we just may very well see a comeback from him as far as his career goes too.
That's very possible. I mean, as we talked about at the very beginning, Goswser is back in the scene, and he has been back for a little while. Tried to qualify for WCS NA, or just WCS. Wasn't quite able to make it as far as he would have liked, but now he's here fighting in the Team Gravity Fight Night. Takes a victory here, and of course that will amp up his ego, maybe just a little bit, depending on how he views PiLiPiLi. But like you said, some nice matches overall, a nice comeback by Goswser, and we'll have to see if he's able to kind of snowball this comeback in this series into the rest of his career.
All right, so thanks to those 2 players for participating. Congratulations to Goswser. We are going to head into a short break, and when we come back, guys, it is going to be the headlining event, folks. This is what you've been waiting for, no doubt. It's going to be Violet versus Masa. That, guys, is going to be a really exciting match between 2 players at the top of their game, and I can't wait.